everyone. This is Jackie Cooper with the GBA Talk Show, and I want to welcome everyone back to this episode and ask that you like and subscribe. I also want to mention to everyone that we are doing multiple episodes, so definitely it's important for you to kind of navigate back here to see who our next speaker might be, because we have a lot of interesting topics. For those of you that are new to the GBA Talk Show, I want to just share with you a little bit about my background. I am both an attorney as well as a special educator, as well as a blockchain consultant, and I am loving being in this space because of all the creativity and the people that I'm meeting. It's a very intelligent and warm community, and everyone that I've met over the last few years has been involved with both mentoring and educating and bringing people forward in this space. But given that as it may, there are some important topics that we need to talk about too, because as we know in the blockchain, there's definitely great use cases, but there are also some risks and volatility. So it's important that as we navigate the blockchain, that we are doing our research and helping others understand the pros and the cons that are in this space. So with that, I have a very special guest on today. I'm going to have him introduce himself. I met him at one of the GBA events, and I definitely want to recommend that anyone who's listening to this reach out to GBA so you can get on their email list and you can find out more about their workshops, because things, as I said, are evolving, and in order for you to keep up, we all have to be educated and talk to those in the community. So how are you doing today, Kevin?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, I really appreciate your being on. You have a really diverse background, and I want to make sure I don't miss anything. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and your company? And I also want to make sure that everyone knows we are going to be mentioning how to reach Kevin so you can connect with him. But if you're without a paper and pen while you're listening to this, whether on the road or traveling or not, it will be his contact information will be embedded in the blog below, so you can just come back to this episode and reach out to him. So Kevin, why don't you go ahead and share a little bit more about what you're doing?
Sure. So thank you. I mean, I do have a diverse background, not quite as much as yours, with being everything from a teacher to a lawyer to a crypto advocate. But, I have done a lot. And, my background, I've been really doing cyber since before it was called cyber. I work a lot in the Google ecosystem. I volunteer for them a lot because, we all know how Google is hurting on money. So I serve there as a Google product and developer expert. I'm also now an innovator champion and ambassador there. But in the cyber world, I've been doing it a long time. I started working with the Apache SpamAssassin project many eons ago, back in its nascent days, and have helped battle, malware, phishing, and spam for, now going on almost 3 decades. Started that in really the late to mid 90s. Later working with the SpamAssassin project, have published things for years. And also serve as a U.S. Marine Corps Cyber Auxiliary member. So lots of fun stuff, but today really is about blockchain, digital ledger, and cyber is my hopes. So
yeah, no. So you've been involved with security and the cyber world. How did you navigate over or learn about blockchain? When did you first start learning about it? I know for me, I didn't realize how old blockchain was. You kind of hear about the current events and you think, oh, it's new, but actually it's been around for a while. And so when did you start learning about all this?
So it's been a while. So I started a hosting company in 1996, and it was several years after that, I think around maybe like 2000, 2003, somewhere in that era. We actually, just for a lark, went and used some spare processors and went and mined some Bitcoin. For those who, we lost the hard drive for it. So we mined 1,200 Bitcoin plus. Some of my staff has been calling, trying to figure out how they could go get that hard drive. But unfortunately, it's long since lost to the sands of time. But yeah, so that was my first foray into it, was just somebody saying, hey, what's this mining? How does this work? And that's all pre GPUs being involved, and I don't even remember. I think we probably mined 1,200 in a week.
Wow.
Kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. But after that, the big thing for me was I started getting involved. I became the vice president of fundraising for the Apache Software Foundation. And, there I helped take a very, very large donation, over $1 million, and convert it to fiat currency, because as a foundation, that was the only way we could use the monies, and started learning a whole bunch about how to do fiat currency conversion from cryptocurrency, but also how to do, $1 million plus. How do you do that and, get it done and whatnot. It was quite difficult, really, to turn it into, US dollars and whatnot. From there, I went on to, really kind of, doing a whole bunch of work. As for those who don't know, most people know me as Cam. I've been involved in the cyber world, a couple of decades now. And like I said before, we really even called it cybersecurity. But some of the interesting things I've done over the years, I've helped track down criminals. I do a lot with anti-spam and anti-phishing and malware. So stopping ransomware, stopping cryptoware, de-anonymizing cryptocurrency is something that I'm a specialist in, and being able to track down bad actors and track it as it's used through the chains. Some chains are easier, some are harder. But then also, doing things like writing the policies for DEA agents to stay safe when they're hunting bad actors. So a lot of varied technology, a lot of interesting thing. Right now, I'm working a lot on private digital ledgers to use them for the benefits of what DLT technology, the underlying portion of blockchain, and how to use that in private settings.
You've mentioned a lot here. I'm going to try to break down the layers. So let's talk about the private ledger area first, and how can businesses start to look at using this, and if they're not familiar with taking the first step, how do they do that? Because again, there are those that are knowledgeable, there are those that are curious, and then there are those that are just beginning to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, a lot of people, especially people that aren't in the industry, they don't necessarily understand the difference between cryptocurrency and digital ledgers. And that's the first thing I usually try and talk about is, digital ledger technology is the first major change in accounting in, I don't know, hundreds of years. I'd have to go back and look, when did double entry bookkeeping become the norm? But we kind of evolved into double entry bookkeeping. And now this idea that you can do double entry bookkeeping with veracity and resiliency and, depending on your point of view, trustless or trustability, it has become a big thing. So, when you're trying to make sure that certain things are done, but they can be shared, they can maybe be transparent, even if they're just transparent inside of a company, that's what digital ledger technology does. So for those who don't know the cryptocurrency, a lot of the underlying concepts of it are the fact that a ledger is kept. It is then stored on many, many, many machines. It's verified. There's peers. There's redundancy. If you've ever done any trades of any cryptocurrency, you might have noticed that they might have something like they wait for 7 nodes to verify that the event has been recorded before they officially say that it's recorded. Things like that. But this concept that you can have digital ledgers for information is very, very important. So good examples are you've made a backup of a system. It's been stored somewhere. You have cryptographically made a hash of that backup. So now you can say that it is stored, it is immutable, and it is verifiable to say, yes, this is the backup. And now you distribute that to 7 geographically dispersed points, maybe up in Google's cloud on multiple regions, multiple systems. Maybe you do it internally on your data systems, et cetera. But basically, it's using the underlying digital ledger technology for private purposes. This isn't something where you'll be posting that ledger, for example, up on a website. But at the very minimum, from an audit standpoint, it would be very difficult to change all 7 of those systems, make the cryptographic hash work, and have that backup be modified. Whereas, like, for example, if we go into an audit, we can say, yes, this is a backup of the system from April 3rd of 2022. Here's the cryptographic hash. And here is where that was stored in 7 places, and they all verify that setup. So that's the basics behind it.
How expensive is that for a company to get started in this? I mean, in my mind, I was thinking, okay, this is a backup system, sort of like how we put a backup into our computers. But if someone wants to get going in this, how do they actually get started? And do they hire someone like you, or how do they even navigate this?
Yeah, so right now I would say it's pretty expensive because it's fairly bespoke programming. Somebody who understands blockchain and is implementing it at a private level. There's tons of open source code out there that you can use to build. There's also things like, for example, Google just announced they've become a verifier for the Avalon crypto. So there are growing capabilities on this. We're starting to see, like, for example, when we talk to auditors, that the concept of using a digital ledger is gaining traction, where they're like, okay, that's a really good way to confirm that it's verifiable and immutable as far as the backups go. And right now, we're not storing the backups that way. We're actually only storing information about the backups. But I would say the biggest things to jump in it probably would be to get with a consultant. The GBA, or the Government Blockchain Association, fabulous place to start. Plenty of people in there that are smart, know how to start putting some bits down on paper to build a program, build a solution for you. Of course, at Dido, we do things like that as well. We love solving hard problems that nobody solved before, and this is one of them.
So I'm glad you mentioned your website and your company. So let's pull up your website so we can just take a quick look. So where would you like me to hop? Do you want me to go to products, solutions, resources, the company? You have a lot here. So what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Show everyone.
Well, websites sometimes become the cobbler's kids. So, I don't go look at our website very much, but I would point out it is ditoweb.com, Dido Web. We are one of the first Google Premier partners. In June, were awarded Google Cloud Security Partner of the Year. We're also the Google Cloud preferred partner for authorizations to operate in the DoD and in the public sector. So love doing FedRAMP work, love doing different cybersecurity frameworks, love doing different technology that pulls into it. And yeah, we do a lot of professional services. We do work with some of the largest companies in the world, some of the highest cybersecurity companies in the world as well. So we're kind of a smaller shop. We've got about somewhere around 140 people, I think. And, we do a lot with our cybersecurity work to try and make things better. So that's what I lead at the organization. And you can email me at kam@ditoweb.com. So cam@ditoweb.com. Just let me know what problems you have. We love solving problems that nobody solved before. That's something that I particularly specialize in.
So you mentioned this a few times, and I think it's really important. The security side, what tips or things do you think that both individuals as well as companies need to be aware of when they are navigating the web, and how is the blockchain making it more secure, or can maybe solve the problem that we're having, even though things can get hacked on many levels? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, the blockchain's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Especially when you talk about cryptocurrency, you have issues there. So, for example, right now I do a lot of anti-spam and a lot of phishing prevention, and cryptocurrency is typically the one of the key choices for exfiltration of funds, because it is theoretically less trackable. It's easier to get across, country lines, easier to get outside of a country, basically. And then theoretically, they can try and convert it to fiat currency. It also right now is particularly being used to evade sanctions, countries like North Korea, as well as Russia. There's been a pretty large growth in use of cryptocurrencies to evade the sanctions because of the Ukrainian invasion, for example. The tips for companies, my gosh, I probably give a few dozen talks a year about various cybersecurity tips, things like, top security things for businesses. But, probably the overarching one, without maybe pulling up a slide deck and going down my top 15, is just that security needs to be built in, not bolted on. It should be part of your mission out of day one. And if you're doing things, if you're not sleeping well at night, I generally say that in cybersecurity, I have 3 jobs. The first job is the same for anybody in any industry, and that is to make your boss's life easier. So, I ask this question of people I mentor pretty routinely. I just say, what's your number one job here? And they'll usually come up with something dealing with their job duty. And, I make podcasts, or, I get out there and I'm like, no, your number one job is to make your boss's life easier. That's job number one. And if you do that in business and you do it for your boss, or if you own the company and you're doing it for your customers and you make your customers happy, you're going to have major success. Okay. The second thing that you do in cyber, though, specifically, is you try and give people a sleep well at night factor. I hate the firms that get out there and they evangelize with what we call fear, uncertainty, and doubt, or FUD. You'll never find me doing that. Everything I try and do is 100% educational, and I try and give people ideas of how they can make things better, how they can use things safely. And then the third thing, it's a little pithy and whatnot, but it's to keep your customers out of the newspapers. Cyber done right is very little pomp and circumstance. It's just keeping your head down, keeping things secure, and constantly thinking of things. But I did think of one more advice, which is, I do give a lot of top X in various situations, but if you don't have an ethics guideline at your organization for your IT division, or you need one to follow, USENIX, USENIX, has one that came out of the System Administrators Guild, or SAGE, and then it was part of LISA, which is the large installation system administrators, I think is what that stood for. But now it's just part of USENIX. So the USENIX Code of Ethics is just fantastic for steering you right. Things like cryptocurrency and digital ledger technology, they're pushing the envelope. So when is something ethical or not ethical is something that sometimes I get asked, and I have to go look at the USENIX Code of Ethics and go down it and just say, okay, this is not ethical, and here's why. I call it the IT 10 Commandments, and I will put a link to it. Maybe you can bring it up for a second. See if I can put it in the chat here for you.
Yeah, and I'll also, for those that might not be on the visual, I will also make sure that it's embedded within the blog below.
Yeah.
I'm grabbing it, so give me a second while I pull it up. Yeah, for sure. But I think that is really critical, because we do a lot of things, and as a lawyer and also an educator, I think ethics is something that needs to be part of our mindset. Okay.
Yeah,
so
I found out about this at least 20 years ago, and I think they've had a few small grammatical changes in it. But you just think about all the evolution that's occurred in the internet just in the last 20 years, from social media to blockchain, becoming more of our everyday lives. This ethics guideline is just perfect. I mean, basically, professionalism, you have to maintain a professional contact, personal integrity, privacy, laws and policies that you have to keep up abreast of relevant laws, regulations, and policies. Also that you need to share those with other people, that you have a community responsibility, and the responsibilities of the computing community, and social responsibility and ethical responsibility. And, sometimes we get requests to do something, and we have to go down through this and basically figure out whether or not it's ethical or not, because a lot of things in new technology can be very gray area, and this can help us figure out which side of the black or white coin it's on.
Yeah, because it's not just the use of it, or rather the creation of it, it's how are we going to be using it, or how are other people going to be using it, even though I don't want to ever think that we're going to stop someone's creativity. But it sort of is like the area that I navigated in right after law school, bioethics. You might have a certain medical procedure or, application, but you have to think, okay, is this benefiting someone, and that type of thing.
Yeah, it's the thing for me is how to balance the good with the bad. So for example, in anti-spam, I will generally, in an open audience conversation, never discuss details of spamming concepts. And by the way, this is another interesting concept. On your computers, you probably have antivirus software, but for those who are pedantic and grammarians, viruses are just a type of malware, and technically it's a very specific type of self-replicating malware. So you have viruses, and you have worms, you have Trojans, and you have ratware, and etc. But we call these all viruses. So it's the same in the anti-spam world. Phishing and malware and whatnot are all just types of spam, really, in the general system. So when we're blocking this, we want to do it. In fact, it was kind of interesting in advertising for one of the companies that I invest in. they found that most of the hits to their website were actually for people trying to look at how to evade phishing and evade spam detection. So that's a company called raptoremailsecurity.com. And very proud of that work. We published free research for over 18 years there. Started in at least May of 2004 is the earliest we can prove we go back to. We probably did before then, but we never thought to memorialize the day we started it on. But that work protects over 30% of every domain on the planet every single day. Hundreds of millions of users protected with it, and it's been free for over 18 years now. So
that's awesome. You've shared so much, and I'm learning more from you as we're talking. I know that you're involved with a lot of special projects. Anything that you want to highlight right now before we kind of wrap up our conversation? Anything that you want people to know or to think about?
Nothing too much. Just keep moving the cyber needle. Try and start thinking about security first. If you need help, there are consultants and professional organizations out there that can help. Companies like Raptor or the products like Raptor can help with everything from phishing prevention. They do curriculums and training that they're very proud of. Organizations like Dido can really help move the needle. And then, things like the cloud can really help move your cybersecurity needle in ways that organizations can't. I will leave you with a little thing that I actually like talking about towards this, but a lot of people have lost, why do we call it the cloud? So I'll ask you, I'll switch into professorial mode. So Jackie, why do we call it the cloud? Do you know?
I honestly don't. I keep thinking it's because it's above us, but it's just like when I think of a cloud, I think of it as very ethereal, but also so big that you really can't get a handle on the details of it. But that might not be why it was created
You're very much on the right path.
Okay.
The not knowing a handle of the details on it is the right answer. So I'll tell you that. So it long predates what most people consider the start of the internet. It really goes back to IBM, 1960s. They were doing these great flow charting and diagramming templates. And with that template, when you were connecting to another network, and you didn't know anything about that network, you drew it as a cloud because it was foggy, it was cloudy, you knew nothing about it. And so that later on, the internet was just one giant network you were connecting to that you knew nothing about. So you drew it as a cloud. And then when you move servers up to the cloud, it became cloud computing. So the rest is history. But from a cyber standpoint, it's kind of interesting because it's like, what are you going to do to make yourself more secure? Well, we're going to move it all into a network we know nothing about. That's kind of the antithesis of a cybersecurity person wants to know everything about it. But I will say, I was a subject matter expert that brought the first federal agency onto Google's cloud. I helped also at the same time get Google their authority to operate what later became the Google government offerings. And I can tell you unequivocally that it's much more secure. So leverage resources that are out there, build on top of other people's work. Don't roll your own everywhere. You won't be able to make it as secure. And that's probably what I'll leave you with.
Thank you so much. And, for everyone who has questions, remember the contact information will be in the blog below. And definitely, as we talked about, GBA is a great organization to keep up to date with things that are going on in current events and within this community, because it's ever evolving and it's really hard to know it all. You just can't, and you need to stay connected with those that have the specialty and the knowledge. So I definitely want to thank you for coming on, and I look forward to having future chats with you. For everyone who's here and listening, thank you so much. And as I always say on Crypto Mom 2, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. We're all connected. We're all part of one world, and have a great day.